Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This is a core idea of Carl Jung, and what makes it unsettling is this: most people never manage to do that. They spend their entire lives believing they are making choices, while in reality, they are only reacting to psychological forces they have never seen. We like to believe that we are in control of our lives, that we love someone because the feeling is genuine, that we trust someone because they deserve it, that we make certain decisions because we have thought them through long enough. But if you are honest enough to look back, you will realize that many of your decisions did not begin with reason at all. They began with very small emotional triggers, a moment of validation, a carefully timed silence, a fear of being abandoned, a quiet sense of not being good enough. Once those emotions are activated, reason arrives later, not to decide, but to justify. The most effective form of control never looks like control. It does not give orders, it does not force, it does not threaten. Instead, it gives you the feeling that you are choosing freely, that you are acting in alignment with who you truly are. And because of that, you do not resist it. You follow along naturally, willingly, and in a way that feels completely reasonable.
People do not hate being controlled. They hate realizing that they are being controlled. When power is hidden with enough subtlety, enough politeness, and enough alignment with your ego, you may even defend it. You call it affection, understanding, or circumstance, while beneath the surface, your behavior is being guided little by little. The danger does not lie in someone understanding human psychology. The real danger lies in not recognizing your own psychological triggers. A person who does not understand how they are being influenced can never truly be the one holding the wheel. And many of us, no matter how intelligent we are still handing over control of our lives to forces we cannot properly name. This video is not meant to teach you how to manipulate others. Honestly, the world already has more than enough people who know how to control someone else. This video exists for a more uncomfortable reason: to help you see the invisible strings quietly pulling at your behavior, emotions, and decisions, so that at the very least, you can tell the difference between moments when you are truly living and moments when you are simply being guided with skillful precision. If you have ever felt that you are always the one who gives in, always the one who thinks more, always the one who is more affected in relationships, then perhaps the issue is not that you are weak. Perhaps it is because someone understood human psychology one step earlier than you did. Human beings need the feeling of being in control far more than they need actual control. As long as you believe you have the power to decide, your brain naturally lowers its guard. You begin to see everything that happens in your life as the result of personal choice, while in reality, the direction was often mapped out in advance by emotion. It is not that you do not think, but that thinking usually comes after emotion has already set the path. A relationship where you are always the one explaining, always the one clarifying, always the one working to keep things from falling apart. An environment where you have to try twice as hard just to hold on to a fragile and unpredictable sense of approval. You call it responsibility. You call it maturity. You tell yourself it is your own voluntary choice. Yet rarely do you stop and ask a simple but uncomfortable question. Why am I always the one who has to adjust while others do not? Power in modern life no longer appears in the form of commands or coercion. It does not show up as a voice telling you to do this or that. It is far more subtle than that. It whispers that you are smart enough to choose for yourself, and in the very moment you feel respected, control is handed over politely, almost without leaving a trace. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this nature of power centuries ago. He knew that the most enduring form of power is the one that does not make the other person feel ruled. When you believe you are free, you do not resist. When you believe you are acting on your own initiative, you are willing to go further than anyone would dare to ask of you directly. The most refined mechanisms of control, therefore, tend to look very familiar. A half-finished compliment that pushes you to try harder in order to prove your worth. A well-timed silence that leads you to doubt yourself and search for mistakes, even when you are not sure what you did wrong. A choice presented with two options, both leading to the same predetermined outcome. No one forces you, no one gives orders, yet you still follow. And the further you go, the more convinced you become that it was your own decision. The irony is that the people most likely to fall into this pattern are often not weak or uninformed. They are usually highly intelligent. They trust reason. They believe they are alert enough to not be easily led. And it is precisely this belief that becomes their greatest blind spot, the place where vigilance disappears.
Friedrich Nietzsche wrote extensively about the ego and humanity's capacity for self-deception. People are not truly afraid of being defeated by others. What they fear is admitting that they do not understand themselves. Intelligence helps you analyze the world, but it does not automatically protect you from the emotional triggers buried deep within the mind. Manipulation does not win through the stupidity of its victims. It wins through deeply human needs, such as the need to be recognized, to be loved, to feel valuable. When someone touches those needs in the right way, you begin to adjust your behavior to preserve that feeling. You call it compromise. You call it doing it for the relationship, for the job, for the circumstances. But if you observe closely enough, a clear pattern emerges. The cost is often a gradual loss of connection with yourself. The boundary between influence and manipulation is thinner than we like to admit. Everyone influences others. Everyone has at least once used words, attitudes, or silence to shape someone else's behavior. The issue does not lie in technique or surface-level intention. It lies in awareness. When you do not realize you are being controlled, you call it choice. When you do not realize you are controlling others, you call it unintentional. Real change does not come from exposing or condemning someone else. It comes from the moment you begin to observe your own familiar reactions. When you ask yourself why you are always the one who fears loss more, why a single silence is enough to throw your emotions into chaos, that is not weakness. That is the moment you begin to see where your unconscious is being touched. Awakening in psychology is not about becoming cold or closed off from the world. It is the ability to pause before reacting. When you understand what you need, what you fear, and what you are most sensitive to, even the most subtle forms of control begin to lose their power. Not because they disappear, but because you are no longer unconsciously handing them authority. True power does not belong to those who can control others, but to those who are not easily controlled. They do not need to prove themselves. They do not need to manipulate. They understand that the most stable form of control always begins from within.
There is a very common kind of freedom that people often mistake for real freedom. It is the freedom to choose between options that were already prepared by someone else. You still feel like you are deciding. You still believe you have the right to say yes or no. But in reality, you are simply moving inside a cage designed with enough care, beauty, and logic that you forget you are inside it at all. That cage is not built with bars or locks. It is built from emotions, expectations, fear of judgment, and the need for approval. You move comfortably within it. Sometimes you even defend it because it gives you a sense of safety. And because of that, you do not realize that you have grown used to choosing only what is allowed, rather than experiencing true freedom. If there is something more frightening than being controlled, it is the moment you begin to give that control familiar names. You call it personality, you call it fate, you call it circumstances. You tell yourself, this is just who I am. At that point, control no longer comes from the outside. It becomes part of how you see yourself. And once you identify with it, the idea of leaving rarely even crosses your mind. So before this video ends, I want you to do one very small but very honest thing. The next time you are about to agree to something, about to nod, about to give in, about to take another familiar step, pause for exactly 2 seconds. In those 2 seconds, ask yourself one direct question. Am I choosing this because I want to, or because I am afraid? That single question is enough to help you begin noticing the strings you never named before. And once you see them, even if you cannot cut them right away, you will no longer move through life entirely on autopilot. That is not rebellion. That is the first moment of awareness. If this video resonated with you, leave a comment saying, "I see it now." Or, if you feel like sharing, briefly describe a situation where you once believed you were choosing freely, only to realize much later that it was not quite so. I read every comment. And if you want me to continue creating videos that explore psychological triggers in love, work, and relationships that slowly pull people away from themselves, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Not to support me, but so you no longer have to live like someone driving a car while their hands are not truly on the steering wheel. I will see you in the next video.